Somewhere I Belong, Chapter 15, Part 3. "Please, my daughter's in there!" the mayor yelled. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the fire is too out of control," and the police stallion was cut off as another blaze of flame shattered a window. Isaac clenched his fist and walked up to the couple. "What floor is your daughter on?" he asked. "She's on the 5th floor, but..." The stallion was cut off as the man ran towards the adjacent building. He raced up the stairs as several ponies were running down the stairs. "Are you crazy?" a stallion yelled as Isaac ran past him. "A little, yeah," he said as he reached the 5th floor. He was standing in a long hallway next to the blazing building. Isaac opened the window and took several steps back. The man broke into a run and jumped through the window and into the blazing inferno. Isaac immediately felt the heat of the fire and pulled his shirt over his nose and mouth in an attempt to filter out the smoke. "Hello, is anyone up here?" he yelled. The man opened the door to the first apartment only to see a giant wall of flame. The fire from the sudden oxygen intake made the flames erupt towards the man, causing him to hit the wall behind him. Isaac looked up to see a falling beam. He managed to dodge the piece of burning wood. Isaac pressed onward, calling out. "Hello? If anyone is here, then say something," he yelled as he could feel the oxygen slipping away from him. "Help!" The man's eyes shrank as he heard a voice coming from inside of one of the rooms. Isaac bashed in the door to see another wall of flames. "Is anyone out there?" He heard a young girl's voice yell out. Isaac took a deep breath and jumped through the fire. He felt the flames lash at his legs and body. The man entered the room and looked around to see a living room and the flames dancing in front of the kitchen. "Where are you?" Isaac yelled as he coughed. "In here, the bedroom," the voice cried out. Isaac ran toward the voice and kicked in the door. He looked around the room but saw no one there. He heard a faint cough coming from underneath the bed. He looked underneath the bed to see a red Pegasus filly coughing in the corner. "Give me your hand, I'm here to get you out," Isaac said as he extended his hand underneath the bed. The foal looked at it in hesitation. "Your parents are waiting for you just outside." The filly perked up hearing this. The man stuck out his hand one last time. He felt the filly grab his arm and held on as Isaac pulled her out from under the bed. He noticed that the filly's right leg was burned. He quickly took off his jacket and wrapped it around the filly's body. Isaac picked her up and charged out of the room. He stopped as the floor in front of him collapsed. Isaac looked down into the swirling inferno and swore that he saw hell itself. He took a few steps back and vaulted over the hole. As he landed on the other side, the floorboards gave out and the man grabbed onto the edge and held on for dear life. Isaac looked up and saw that the filly was looking at him with tears in her eyes. The man mustered his strength and lifted himself back onto the floorboards. The filly smiled as Isaac got to his feet. The foal looked up to see a beam coming down. She closed her eyes and waited for the crushing pain. The filly looked up to see the pieces of wood floating above her head and the man with his hand outstretched. "Move," he ordered. The filly quickly got out of the way as Isaac moved underneath the floating pieces of wood and let the pieces fall after he went underneath them. Isaac felt something running down his face. He put a hand underneath his nose and saw blood as he looked at his fingers. He ignored it for now as he picked up the filly and ventured back out into the blazing hallway. Shit, the exit's blocked. No way out, he thought as the wall started to come down. The man looked down at his left hand and saw what looked like small strands of electricity flashing between his fingertips. "What is this?" he said aloud. He heard the filly yelp in fear. Isaac looked up just in time for a piece of wood to hit him in the back and knock him out. Isaac opened his eyes to see the small filly punching his arm and trying to rouse him. The man also saw a shadowy figure pointing towards the end of the hall where the window facing the street was. "Game's not over yet, kid." The man heard a familiar voice echo through his mind. "Now get up." Isaac caught a second wind and slowly got to his feet. The filly looked at him in wonder as he wrapped her arms around his neck and held on. Isaac looked behind him to see a small explosive force come from the other end of the hallway. The man bolted towards the window with newfound strength. "Hang on," he yelled as the filly tightened her grip. Isaac could feel the heat whipping at his legs as he closed in on his target. With one last burst of effort, he jumped through the glass window and into the city air. As he was in midair, he stuck out his hands and felt his descent slow until he was 3 feet above the ground. His concentration dissipated, and he landed on his hands and knees. Several ponies in firefighting uniforms rushed over to them. Isaac watched as the filly ran over to her parents, who were crying tears of joy. Isaac had a blanket thrown over him and was given an oxygen mask. As one of the paramedics came over to him, Isaac shrugged him off. "Hey, will the filly be okay?" "She has a small burn on her leg, that's about it," he said as he looked Isaac over. "Well, whatever you are, you're a hero," the pony said with a grin. "No, I'm not," he said as he pulled the fire blanket over his head and discreetly made his way through the crowd. Isaac had finished telling his tale to Rarity, who was in complete shock. The man decided to keep the bit about the individual in the white hood to himself. Then I walked 3 blocks, threw the blanket in a trash can, and came upstairs, he said as he dunked his head into the warm water. That is amazing. Why didn't you stick around and talk to the press? The white mare asked. I don't like drawing attention to myself, he said in a flat tone. Still, you saved a filly's life. That must do something, right? I just did what I thought was right, he said as he stretched his arms. The man got out of the hot tub and threw a towel over his shoulder. I'm gonna go lie down in the room for a bit. Okay, I think you deserve some peace and quiet. That makes one of us, he said under his breath as he left the pool room. Rarity squinted and swore she saw something on the man's left shoulder, but dismissed the thought as Isaac left the room. The man made his way back to the elevator in silence. The man got to his room and hesitantly entered the shower to wash off the chlorine and chemicals from the pool. He let the warm water pour over his body, that was still recovering from the fire he had thrown himself into. The man turned the water off and stepped out and looked at himself in the mirror. The man let out a scoff as he saw the burn mark healing itself. So much for staying human, he said with a sigh. The man changed into a pair of baggy gym shorts and a t-shirt. He laid down on the couch and closed his eyes. The man found himself in a familiar white room. Quite the day you've had, Isaac. The man looked up to see Luna with a blank expression on her face, running into a burning building. That is either brave or stupid. How did you know about the fire? He asked. We're in your mind, remember? My sister and I also received a notification from the city an hour ago that a strange bipedal, bald creature ran into a burning building and pulled a filly out. She said as she walked over to him. Do you want to talk about it? I don't know. Why not? You saved a filly's life, she said as she sat next to him. I didn't save everyone. The mayor looked at him in confusion. There was another trapped on the 6th floor. They didn't make it out, he said as he hung his head in shame. Luna put a hand on his shoulder, trying to offer comfort. You did all you could. It wasn't enough. I could have gone back inside. I could have saved her. You would have been killed, she stammered. So, I'm not someone important. I was thrown here by accident. That's all I am. One massive accident, he said with a groan. The lunar princess then slapped the man across his face. That's enough, she yelled. You shouldn't think that your life is meaningless. Say what you want. It doesn't change anything. I failed, he said as he hung his head. If it's one thing I've learned in my years of living, it's that you can't save everyone. Trust me, I've learned that the hard way, he said as he got up. By the way, something weird happened while I was in the fire. What? I felt this surge of strength flow through me, and I floated down to the ground. Mind telling me what kind of spell that was? The blue princess thought for a moment. We can't think of any. We do have a hunch of what might be happening. Let's hear it then. Magic is different for every pony, and can take many forms. The way magic is presented is based upon the individual. So what you're saying is, whatever I think qualifies as magic, the power will adjust itself accordingly? He asked as he cocked an eyebrow. Correct, although what? You are from a different plane of reality, so it's uncertain to know how your body will react to such strength. That probably explains the nosebleed. Thanks for clearing that up, Luna. I'd better get going. Rarity and I gotta get going. The blue mare nodded and vanished from the man's mind. Isaac looked to his right to see a copy of him with white hair and glowing red eyes. Oh great, what do you want? You heard that thing. Her name is Luna, Isaac said as he narrowed his eyes. Fine, whatever. I suggest we practice some of this new strength. We both know whose voice that was before in the fire, the image said with a grin. I'm pretty sure that was the after effect of getting hit by a burning piece of wood. Still, just imagine to have that guy's strength. You heard what she said. Anything we deem as magic will appear as so, the image said with a smile. I think that might be too much power. No such thing, the clone said with a wicked grin. That's where you and I differ. We should still practice. Fine, let's get this thing started, Isaac said as he took a fighting pose. The clone took the same pose. Let's get the blood pumping a bit now, shall we? The image snapped its fingers, and music started to blaze around the two.